Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. As you can see, joining me, Craig and Stacy Schroeder, my friends from Fight with Flash Foundation via Facebook or fightwithflash.org. Got another big show lined up for you this week. I know you'll think so after viewing it. Parker Hesse going to join us, the Atlanta Falcon tight end, formerly the Iowa Hawkeye defensive end from Waukon, Iowa. Craig in my home area, Northeast Iowa by Postville. Parker's going to join us here in just a moment, as well as James Vandenberg, former Hawkeye quarterback, and then we'll close out the show with our Hawkeye insider, David Eickholt. But Craig and Stacy, I want to take a moment before the show gets rolling here, and again, join us on the website, DaveO'HaraSports.com. Craig and Stacy and I do a special Fight with Flash video each week, but what a week it was. Number 3, Iowa beats number 4, Penn State. You were there. I was there. Those of you that are viewing and weren't there, if you watched on TV, you saw what an event it was. But I want you to, when we go to the Fight with Flash video to DaveO'HaraSports.com, to talk about the significance. It's not just a great gathering event, which it is, that we all share with the Wave between the first and second quarter of Hawkeye games. But I'm looking forward to you two putting some context to that. So thanks as always for joining us, and we'll catch up with you in a second. Everything good with you too?
Yes, great.
Still reeling, Dave.
Got to love it. And Craig, don't keep reeling because it's homecoming week too at Iowa as they host Purdue this week. So, hey, we'll be back in just a few seconds here with Parker Hesse. And then again, join us online, DaveO'HaraSports.com, for the Fight with Flash video with Craig and Stacy Schroeder. Back with more Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara, in just a few seconds. Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. As you can see on the screen, my buddy Parker Hesse. Yeah, that Parker Hesse. See all his information on the bottom of the screen along with mine. Former Hawkeye defensive end, former walk-on quarterback, and walk-on by W-A-U-K-O-N, not W-A-L-K-O-N, but he's from my home area, Northeast Iowa, Waukon, Iowa. I'm a Postville guy, and we still get along and we still talk, so here we go. I got to ask you, Parker, first of all, since last time you joined us, and thanks again for joining us, and I want to hear how everything's going, and the viewers do, but last time you joined us in the spring, you were with the Tennessee Titans. You've got to update us on some business that you just had happen to you recently, and you were in London, so with the Atlanta Falcons now as a tight end. So again, thanks for joining us, and secondly, how's everything going with you? You look great, but get us up to speed on this whirlwind you've just experienced.
All right, I appreciate you having me, Dave. But yeah, after we spoke last, the Titans, they called me before I came down for OTAs. They cut me. They had a few other guys they wanted to look at. Fortunately for me, my former offensive coordinator in Tennessee is now the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. So the Falcons picked me up. About 2 days later, I got on a plane, flew down to Atlanta, went through OTAs, went through camp, ended up making the team out of camp. So I've been on the active roster the past 5 weeks or so, 6 weeks, 5 weeks. But yeah, this last week in London, just due to some roster changes, I was released while I was in London on Saturday for a game, and then signed back to the practice squad again. So currently on the practice squad in Atlanta. Just staying at it.
Well, and you and I were talking off camera, and I'll bring it on camera. How ironic it is you're within an hour of number 1 ranked Georgia in Athens, Georgia, and you're in the Atlanta area. I was talking to you about the Atlanta Braves being, as we record this on Tuesday afternoon, October 12th, and it's National Farmers Day. So thanks again to all our farmers and Joe Mershman and crew. But also, Parker, there is so much going on in Major League Baseball with the Atlanta Braves playing the Milwaukee Brewers. And you and I were joking. You said you got some texts from some family and friends back up in Northeast Iowa saying, hey, you should have stayed with playing baseball, and you loved the Brewers when you were a kid. So you got everything pulling at you every which way. And you said around the facility this week, everybody wants to talk to you about who are these Iowa Hawkeyes, number 2 ranked, clipping at the Georgia Bulldogs' heels. So you got it all happening, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, at the facility the last few weeks, as I was kind of been climbing the rankings, they're saying, Iowa every 5 years or so they go on one of these runs, everything seems to fall into place. Could this be the year? And certainly things have been going great for them. But yeah, this area, Georgia Bulldogs are the center of attention. That's what people really resonate with. So it's interesting now them being 1 and 2, kind of having a foot in each camp, so to say.
Yeah, it really is interesting. And you talked about this too with what's happening with homecoming at Iowa this week, hosting Purdue. And I got to ask you a couple of things. You alluded to it. There's obviously the parallels and the comparisons. This year's team isn't there yet, but the team you're talking about that you were a part of in 15, undefeated, and played for the Big Ten championship. You were a younger guy back then, but can you take me through some of that, or take us through some of that, and then the comparisons to this year's team? You got to get there first, but to go 12-0 in the regular season, then tough loss, obviously the Big Ten championship game, and then playing in the Rose Bowl. But talk about that experience and compare it to this year for us, if you could, please.
Yeah, I mean that was obviously a tremendous year, such a fun team to be a part of. You just look back on the senior leadership kind of on that team is what was able to carry us through and keep us so consistent. As opposed to other seasons, where we maybe stubbed our toe in a game or two, that we certainly had the talent to win. And this team undoubtedly is as talented as Iowa's been in the last 10 years. But yeah, that's going to be the test down the stretch, is just having the mental fortitude to keep playing at that level, no matter who's on the schedule, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's hard when it's not number 4 Penn State every week, and it's a team that has nothing to lose. They're an underdog. They can just empty the call sheet. They can hit you with anything they want. They can onside kick because it doesn't matter. They're expected to lose. So that's the challenge of being a program or being a team that's sustained success. Anyone can have that one night where they upset someone. But when you're number 2 in the country, you're 6-0, you're gonna get everyone's best shot. And obviously everyone in the building, Coach Ferentz and his staff, they know that, and that's something that they're really going to prioritize the rest of the year.
You take a look at Phil Parker, and you mention him and what's going on in the meeting rooms. And I always talk to James Vandenberg, former Hawkeye quarterback, about what that's like leading from the offensive side of the ball. But now you talk about defense and Norm Parker, and as you mentioned, getting everybody's best shot. And what I find interesting about that is you were a team leader, even as an underclassman. The defense has to keep their own going, but you got to talk about this, and you knew it was coming. Norm Parker had a great tradition he started, and now Phil Parker taking that mantle into another level. And, we had another Hawkeye. Hankins was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week. And so you see all the accolades coming down. What is it like playing, I'll just say, a Parker-led defense? Norm Parker before your time, and now Phil Parker. Talk about that if you could for us, please.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Phil is he's extremely detailed, and just his intensity. That's something people joke about, but that's really the essence of it, is just not conceding anything. Just being sound, never giving up big plays, and then not challenging everything that they have. And you look at Iowa defenses, and that's the thing that stands out, is all 11 guys are on the same page, and there's no gimmies. You have to earn everything. The results, the stats, all the numbers you want, they speak for themselves. The last 5-8 years with him as the
to your point, though, you take a look at some of the talent, and you and I talked about this even last spring, but we did a segment on this show earlier this year with our Hawkeye insiders, David Eickholt and Sean Bach, and we showed all the Hawkeyes in the NFL, and whether they're on practice teams or on rosters, and tied for 6th in the country of all divisions 1, 2, and 3, but of the 130 Division I programs, Iowa was tied for 6th with Clemson at 35 plus. If you added practice roster, IR with Kittle and George Kittle and all these other guys. Now, we got to give some acknowledgement here to all that's going on with the Hawkeyes in the NFL. What's in the water in that Iowa City locker room, Parker? Great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, just it's ran like a professional program. You're expected to be somewhat of a pro. Obviously, you're there to go to school. That's a priority. You're young. There's kind of a learning curve, but in comparison to other college programs, you're kind of expected to be a pro. There's not people who hold your hand, take you to class. Just show up on time, be prepared, do what's asked of you. That's stuff that really is the essence of being a professional football player. So that transition for people who have been fortunate enough to experience that, as hard as it may be as a 19, 20-year-old kid, it really pays off if you get the opportunity in the pros.
And that's what I found fascinating that you told me last time you were on this show. You mentioned about coming in you were a quarterback in high school, and you had a state championship run with Y. Miller, who had a good career at Northern Iowa as a running back. And then you go to the defensive side of the ball. Now you're off to the offensive side. And you talked about that, about how you're prepared to handle whatever is thrown at you. And to your point, that's what makes Hawkeyes such great pros, or make it to that level, because you're able to adapt and adjust. And either on the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, you know what it's like, as you mentioned, to be a pro.
Yeah, certainly. And that, it's something that, I think, Iowa players take pride in, that there's, it's not always widely known. You look at that list of college teams that, and the amount of pro players they have, Iowa always seems to get like the eyebrow raised, like, what's Iowa doing up there with Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, right? But for people, in front offices around the league, like, that's a real thing that's recognized. That's part of the brand of football players that Iowa puts out.
All right, one last piece of business for you. Is Milo going to make an appearance, or we'll just talk about him?
I don't. Milo, you wanna?
All right, here he comes. All right.
I don't know if he's kind of shy right now.
All right, well, we aced him out last time. I'll at least mention him. Keith Duncan brought his dog, Mila, the female version of Milo. And so he had Mila on the air a couple weeks ago, and I told him the story when we had Parker Hesse on. I said a couple of months ago, Milo, oh, there he is. Hey, Milo. There it is. So that little guy was making all that noise last spring. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's real protective. He knows who's the boss around the house. So if someone comes walking by, he'll let him know about it.
Well, congratulations and hello to Milo. He got his big chance. He's on camera now. So I'll just keep it to you on social media, but you can shout out to Milo if you want. But hey, Parker, I can't even begin to tell you thanks enough again for joining us with all that you had going on in your world in the last couple of weeks with the Atlanta Falcons as a tight end on the practice squad. He is Parker Hesse, formerly of Walk-On Iowa, formerly of the Iowa Hawkeyes, and now Northeast Iowa member with me in the Postville Walk-On area. Great to have you on. Great to see you again, smiling and laughing. Glad all's going well for you. Look forward to catching up with you soon, Parker. Thanks so much, my friend.
All right. Thanks for having me. Have a good rest of your day.
I will. You do the same. So for Parker Hesse, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more Hawkeye to close out the show with former Hawkeye quarterback James Vandenberg and then Hawkeye insider David Eickholt. Back with more in just a few moments.
In farming, everybody knows relationships drive the industry. And with Merschman Seeds, you've got a friend in the field. Hi, this is Joe Merschman. We're the friend that delivers with extraordinary speed. We're the friend that shares knowledge and innovation. We're the friend that cares about your yields and profits. And we just happen to have the most advanced seed technology in the industry. When you choose the best seed, you also get the best people. Merschman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Chevrolet. We've lived through some very interesting times the last few months. Ensuring everyone's safety is more important than ever. That is why we're participating in the Chevy Clean program. At your request, we will pick up your vehicle, service it, and return it after we've cleaned it using the current CDC guidelines. This is just another way to work towards exceeding your expectations. So give us a call and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. As you can see on the screen, my buddy James Vandenberg joining me. As always, James, former Iowa Hawkeye quarterback. All his information on the bottom of the screen along with mine. James with RBC Wealth Management and CorridorInvestmentGroup.com. James, big Hawkeye victory last week, 23-20. You and I almost nailed the score, but your buddy Bill Happel got it right on the money, 23-20 last week. But what a game, what a victory. Oh, by the way, now the reward is homecoming week, hosting Purdue on Saturday. First and foremost, as always, thanks for joining us. And secondly, James, how you doing and how are the Hawkeyes doing? What are you thinking about them?
Oh, yeah. What a great environment. What a great game. Our friend Joe Merschman was down on the field. I mean, just an awesome experience in Kinnick over the weekend and two really good football teams playing against each other. And ultimately, kind of like we talked last week, I mean, turnovers, the little things, it was a grind of a game, but turnovers were definitely the difference and just a great victory, but super exciting here. I mean, and getting to watch that game and kind of going forward, but yeah, you're already alluding to turn the page next week, homecoming week, with Purdue coming into town, who I believe, I mean, us, Minnesota and Purdue kind of all control our own destiny, if I'm correct.
You are. And let's not forget, Alabama loses last week to Texas A&M. So the Hawkeyes number 2 right now in the CFP rankings when they come out upcoming. Georgia number 1. But yeah, what a celebration. But now you look at what Iowa's got in front of them. So mentioning all those things, James, it's homecoming week, number 2 in the country after Alabama gets knocked off. I got to think it's one of two things or both. The Hawkeyes got to be looking, okay, if Alabama loses, This can happen to anybody. So you're right. The Hawks have their destiny in their own hands, but there's still big games upcoming with Purdue. Obviously, you got to go to Wisconsin. Northwestern and Fitzgerald are always a thorn in the Hawkeye side. You got to go to Nebraska for the day after Thanksgiving. Of course, there's an Illinois-Minnesota game in there, as you mentioned. All Big Ten games. But James, you know what I'm going to do? Got to go inside QB1's helmet. You're our QB1 in the past. You're inside Spencer Petras' helmet right now. What's happening with him, the team, all this pomp and circumstance, national acclaim going on. Hankins was a Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week. All these great accolades coming down. What's happening in the meeting room again with Spencer, the offense, the team, Ken O'Keefe, Brian Ferentz, Kirk Ferentz? What's going on?
Yeah, I think you're kind of making my point for me before I even say it, but they've got to just concentrate on insulating themselves. I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard about playoffs and Big Ten championship. I mean, it's just like, holy heck, we're halfway through this thing. And I'm as big a fan as anybody of our team. And I think we've done an incredible job up to this point. But yeah, we got 6 Big Ten games left. And those are going to come one at a time, and they're all going to be dogfights. It's not going to be easy. And so I think just generally regrounding yourself after going through that environment. I mean, we saw Bill light up. He was still excited about 1985 and how hyped up that game was. So those guys are probably going through even more of an atmosphere than me and you are. And so just kind of regrounding yourself, getting back in, sticking to your normal routine is going to be important, not only this week, but for the next 6 weeks. Big Ten football is no joke. And so thinking about Alabama, I guarantee you they're not thinking about Alabama. And if they are, we're in trouble, but they're not. Nobody is. That has zero correlation to us. We can't control it. Alabama's going to be just fine, I would assume. But it just comes back to kind of getting back into routine. We had the giant game, the biggest since 85. We're through that now. You got to keep doing what's got us here. And that is what will be a focus of both the coaches and, I believe, the players.
Yeah, you know what, James? You've trained me so well, and now the viewers, you're right. I basically made the point for you because just as excited as you want to get, and you mentioned it. If we're worried about Alabama, the Hawkeyes, leave that to the media and the fans. Like you said, the Hawks know. And you even saw that on Saturday we did in the post-game conferences over the weekend after the game. You had Spencer Petras, Tyler Linderbaum, some of the guys from the defense saying, okay, this was cool. This was the loudest I've ever seen Kinnick or heard Kinnick and the wildest crowd. But we got another game. And they were already tamping that down and going, okay, we got to move on. So to your exact point, they've been trained well and they're already going, the team leaders are already taking the young guys saying, this is cool, but we got other business at hand here.
Exactly. And that's a lot easier said than done, especially in a small town like Iowa City. I mean, the place is buzzing. And there's a certain amount that definitely needs to be enjoyed. But ultimately, there's a 12-game regular season, and we are officially halfway through it. So there's a long ways to go, and I think they'll do a good job of kind of keeping that in perspective.
Amen to that. And you still are after all these years, so you're keeping everything in perspective. Thank you for doing that for us. Keep our feet on the ground and moving forward, looking for a big homecoming victory for the Hawks, number 2 ranked now in the country, hosting Purdue this weekend. So James, my friend, as always, thanks so much for joining us. He's the Hawkeye quarterback, former Hawkeye quarterback, now with RBC Wealth Management and CorridorInvestmentGroup.com. James, my friend, we'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, Dave. Have a good week.
I will, and you do the same. You're welcome, and thank you. So for James Vandenberg, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more Hawkeye to close out the show with Hawkeye insider David Eickholt. Back with more in just a few moments.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Automotive Family. We're living through some of the most interesting and challenging times many of us have ever seen. Knowing who you can rely on is more important than ever. Many of us turn to our families to get us through, and the same holds true here. From our fair, upfront pricing to exceptional service after the sale, we truly want to exceed your expectations. So give us a call or stop by and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
Who do you trust to produce the best yield? A seed company that's chasing technology or a seed company that's writing the book on it? Hi, this is Joe Mershman. Mershman Seeds has been treating soybeans for decades, long before it was commonplace. We're the leader in technology, introducing Mershman Seeds' latest advancement in seed treatment, with an added fungicide to help produce a faster, more even emergence every single time. Who can you trust with your yields? Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. As you can see on the screen, my buddy David Eickholt joining us. You'll see all of David's information at the bottom of the screen along with mine. David, I chuckle and I say this every week, but it's ridiculous. Let's just get right to it. Thanks for joining us. Glad everything's going well with you. Big recruiting weekend. You had press availability today. Let's get into the recruiting first. By the way, if you want more in-depth recruiting information, David Eickholt and his cohort, Sean Bach, going to join me live every Tuesday down at Big Grove in the microbrew off of Gilbert in Iowa City every Tuesday from 4 to 5. We'll put that podcast audio of it up later on in the week. We had Parker Hesse earlier in this show. We're going to have a little bit of snippet from Parker. So a lot of teasers in there, David. But we've got so much we've got so much to get to on the show. We don't have time on this TV show. Sure. We've got to extend into a podcast. So let's get to it. Let's start with the recruiting weekend. We had all types, a large number of players, football and basketball recruits on the sideline on Saturday. Give us a couple of nuggets, please.
You know, I'll say this. I think Iowa definitely blew five-star, safety Xavier Nwankpa out of the water with what they did. I think you got to give a lot of credit to the Iowa student section with the "We Want X" chants as he was making his way down the tunnel. I mean, Iowa getting 4 interceptions and defeating a top-5 opponent also helps the case. But I said this last week too, Dave. It was the most star-studded recruiting lineup I've seen Iowa ever have. And I will say this. It definitely, I think, is going to have a ripple effect going forward. I mean, you're talking about a lot of guys who I think were considering Iowa maybe top 3. I can tell you this, I won't get into specifics, but I can tell you multiple top prospects now where Iowa's at the very top after what they did.
Basketball as well, so we won't get into specifics either on that, but there's so much to get to. But I love the fact that, there could be players that are flipping from other schools, so we want to catch all that. What I love about what you talked about is you pre-crystal balled on this show last week and said you think Xavier's going to go to Iowa. He still has to visit Notre Dame and Ohio State, but an in-state kid from the Des Moines area, Southeast Polk. There's a lot of other recruits in the area that he could be the swing vote to bring guys here. As you said, dudes get dudes. That's right. So dudes bring dudes, and so we have that to talk about down the road. But you made a crystal ball prediction on your social media that Xavier's coming here. So now it's official.
Yeah, I mean, I think Iowa's done everything right in this. And again, it's not a done deal. Right. But I will say this. Remember, Notre Dame and Ohio State, he's already officially visited. He is unofficially visiting those schools again for another game day. I know, the coaches aren't going to be giving up their pursuit of him. I mean, he's the top talent for a reason, number 1 safety in the country for a reason. But Iowa's doing everything they can here. I think they've done everything right. And I mean, Dave, at the end of the day, wins are going to draw top recruits. If Iowa keeps winning, that's only going to utilize it going forward.
So, David, let's get to Kirk Ferentz. He had some interesting comments today. Not much to talk about with Purdue, except that, Purdue has had some success throughout the last 4 years against Iowa. Their coach deflected a little bit and gave a little extra praise to the Hawkeyes. Kirk got a little saucy about Penn State, Coach Ferentz did. But what I like also is you had Hankins, Defensive Big Ten Player of the Week this week. A lot of national. And national as well. So a lot going on with the Hawkeyes. Let's hear Kirk's comments.
Yeah, obviously I think the top storyline coming out of the game was, everybody wants to talk about the Sean Clifford factor, but there's also Iowa fans booing injuries by Penn State. I got to give a hat tip to Chad Lysko, the Des Moines Register, who did raise the question. He asked Kirk, if he had any comments about it, and he said, look, Iowa fans aren't dumb. He said there were a couple players that, they were down, quote, down for the count, and then they came back in a play or two later, and that's the way they responded. And he just said, I think the fans smelled a rat, and they did what they did. And like I said, I tweeted this out just a minute ago, Dave. I love unfiltered Kirk. These last 18 months, I think he's getting to the stage of his career where he's not going to hold back an opinion. And for, media guys like us, I couldn't be more ecstatic about it. And I think the fans also love it too. They love seeing the personal aspect to it. So, like I said, not too much about Purdue. He's worried about David Bell, who is known as the Iowa killer, the Phil Parker's kryptonite. But it's going to be interesting to see what Iowa does going forward. But again, sassy Kirk, I think, is everyone's favorite Kirk right now.
And, let's not forget, as you mentioned to me off the air, Purdue has a very good defense. So you mentioned Sean Clifford effect with the starting quarterback for Penn State being knocked out of the middle of the second quarter last week, knocked out of the game with a rib injury, upper body injury from Jack Campbell. Clean hit, good hard hit. But I love all the naysayers trying to say that. And I love that, like you said, sassy Kirk Ferentz. The Hawkeye team in general, there's no apologies for winning, especially this time of year. You kidding me? Number 2 ranked Hawkeyes now nationally behind the Georgia Bulldogs. And I talked to Parker Hesse and James Vandenberg and James Morris, former Hawkeye players, about that Phil Parker defense and the attitude. 15 seconds again, David, hear from you about that attitude. If there's no apologies, a win is a win.
No, and Jack Campbell even said, no, I tried to make it hit him as hard as I could, make it as clean as possible. And Jack Kerner said, he almost channeled his inner Kirk. He said, that's football. Like, the end of the day, Iowa only cares about the wins and the losses. Now they've set themselves up for a potential special season. Like you said, they shouldn't apologize for it. They won. They took care of their business.
Well stated as always. David, thanks so much, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Dave.
You're very welcome. For David Eickholt and James Vandenberg and Parker Hesse and Craig and Stacy Schroeder, and to you, the viewers, thanks for tuning in. Also, thank a farmer. Today, as we record this on Tuesday, October 12th, is National Farmers Day, so thanks to my good buddy Joe Mershman and all his crew as well. Again, also, please stay tuned next week as we got other big guests coming up. I want to thank Abby and Rob from Homegrown Media for getting us on the air, and to you, the viewers, for tuning in. So again, for the aforementioned guests, I'm Dave O'Hara. That's all from me. Thanks to all of you. And thanks for staying tuned during these rolling credits, to thank our advertisers and sponsors and give them the attention they deserve for supporting this program. Without them, we don't have a program. So thanks to them again, as always. And to you, the viewers, and again, the aforementioned guest, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. That's all from me. Thanks to all of you.